Welcome to the Narcissist Slayers podcast. We are your co-hosts, Hope J.
and Lynn Catalano.
Tune in every month as we teach you how to slay the emotional vampire in your life.
Hope J is an attorney and founder of the Center for Hope Western New York, a nonprofit organization providing low and no-cost resources to victims of narcissistic abuse. Visit our website at centerforhopewny.org for more information.
And Lynn Catalano is an attorney and a narcissistic abuse recovery coach. She's the author of Wrecking Ball Relationships. Find out more about Lynn at lynncatalano.com. We are both survivors of narcissistic abuse, and we bring our personal experiences and professional expertise to help you on your path to healing.
Please support us by hitting that subscribe button. We are on YouTube and Spotify at the Narcissist Slayers Podcast.
And follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at the Narcissist Slayers Podcast. Send us your questions to narcslayers@centerforhopewny.org.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Together, we will help you slay the narcissist in your life and reclaim your power.
Welcome back to the Narcissist Slayers podcast. I'm your co-host, Hope J.
And I'm your co-host, Lynn Catalano.
And today we have a topic that I'm really excited to share with our listeners. It's a topic that I think people don't really focus on in recovery from narcissistic abuse, but I think it's a really essential step in moving forward. And the so important, in fact, that we included it in our new workbook that's going to be coming out in May. We're really excited to share with our listeners that we have, Lynn and I have co-authored a workbook called Slay Your Narcissist, a workbook for survivors from the Narcissist Slayers. And in fact, the last chapter of our workbook is Radical Revolution, which is what we're going to be talking about today on the podcast.
Awesome.
And what we mean by radical revolution is the very last steps that you need to take in your journey forward in order to really free yourself from narcissistic abuse is something that, like I said, I don't think we think about really as survivors, and that is forgiveness, not of the narcissist.
That's really important, Hope. I need you to really make that point.
Yeah, but of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's even as I said that, it's like, yeah, I get this feeling because it's such hard work to really, that kind of self-awareness and honesty.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a lot before we started recording today, and what we ended up deciding to do is that Lynn and I are just going to share our own stories of how we arrived at the ability to forgive ourselves. And so, Lynn, you've shared a lot about your journey on this podcast, a lot more, I think, than I have. And so why don't you talk to our listeners about how you got there?
I think that because our experiences are different, they are great representations of how narcissistic abuse affects you. My narcissist was my father, and that most of my life I didn't recognize what was going on. It took my mother passing away quite suddenly to really kind of shed a light on what was happening and how disordered he was. After I experienced that kind of abuse, it took a long time for me to forgive myself. I think there was so much guilt and embarrassment and shame and obligation wrapped up in my experience. It's all rolled together in this horrible burrito of your abuse. And it's hard to unravel that and really take stock and recognize that none of this is your fault. You could not control any of it. This person suffered from a cluster B personality disorder. They are disordered, and their reactions are disordered. And that's part of learning and accepting that this was not something you did. It took a long time for me. I will tell you, of course, I had a lot of regret. I think that comes with anyone surviving this experience. But I tell my clients there's no positive anything in regret. Like, there's no it's not a good, um it's not where your time should be spent. Like, don't dwell on that. Um, you can't regret what you did to try to make the relationship work because we all do it, and we talk about that all the time. But you need those are the things you need to forgive. Forgive yourself any of the time you spend trying to make it work, and, um, allow yourself time in this moment where you are right now to recognize who you are, how great your support system is, and really appreciate that. Hope
Yeah, yeah, and, so, I mean, I think that thank you for sharing that. Um, I think that when you are coming out of the fog, right, and you are doing all of the hard work to get to the other side, forgiving yourself is often, like, overlooked because, there's so many other things that you need to do to
Yeah,
that you're dealing with, right? You're dealing with like so many other issues that are, coming at you, the smear campaign and, the maybe you're in court and, you've got so many things. It's almost
yeah,
like triage, right? You have to
yeah,
attend to all of these
yes,
things.
yeah,
Um, but then at some point, you're alone with yourself and then I think that's when you kind of take stock of the effect that this relationship or, that you and how, again, I don't, I think sometimes when I talk about, some things in certain ways that it sounds maybe like a victim blaming. And I never, ever want people to think that I'm victim
of
blaming.
course
What I'm trying to do, especially when it comes to forgiveness, is it's really important that you take stock of like your accountability and your responsibility um, in the relationship. And it's really hard to do
not. Yeah,
because it's really painful, especially if your decisions, it's one thing, like I used to say, like it's one thing if I made very bad self destructive decisions and stayed in an abusive relationship and it only hurt me.
right.
Okay. But when it hurts your children,
Yes.
when it hurts, maybe other family members, and maybe you can even relate to that as a mom, right? Um,
Yeah,
because the abuse extends beyond you. If they
yes.
they are abusive, it's going to affect your children. It's going to affect, the whole family
Yeah,
constellation.
yeah,
Maybe you lost friendships. Maybe there's like a lot of things that when you take stock of like, what is the cost
I mean,
that I paid to stay in this relationship, right?
hope when I say regrets have no productive value, but I look back and I think I asked my husband and my kids not to talk about certain things when my father would come over.
Mm,
I made them go on vacation with him
mhm,
multiple times, and it was like one nightmare to the next.
mm,
It took me so long to figure out, we don't have to do this.
right.
And, like, so I completely agree, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Again, guilt, obligation,
Yeah,
shame,
yeah,
embarrassment,
yeah,
here we are.
yeah, yeah. And, so that's I think it's a struggle, and, like, I don't wanna gloss over that,
Good.
like, because when you finally are, I have to say, this is the truth, founding the organization, the Center for Hope of Western New York, has done, a great deal to help other people who are struggling with and
Absolutely.
who've survived narcissistic abuse, and we've done a lot of great work
Yeah.
in the world. But, the impetus, the inspiration really for me to start that is because of the relationship that I survived,
Wow.
and also the impact that it had on my children. And I really, the guilt that I felt that I subjected them to that, and, wanting them to restore their faith in me, as a person who could do, who would protect them
Yeah.
and who could make better decisions because they watched me
Yeah.
at very young
Yeah.
ages, impressionable ages, ages where um, it definitely had an impact on their development, and they watched me uh, make one bad decision after the next.
Oh,
And it's very hard to reconcile that
yeah,
with the person that I am today.
yeah,
Sometimes I feel like it's like I'm making reparations by doing this work in the world,
yeah.
because of the guilt that I carried for so long. And, sometimes I still do struggle. Like it'll still come back sometimes and I'll feel this feeling like I wish I could take that back. Like I wish that they didn't have to go through that.
But you know how
Um,
they
you know,
I happen to know your daughters, and so they witnessed this, but they also witnessed you pulling yourself up
right.
and becoming the person that you are today. And they have been along that journey with you, and they have seen that. They have seen you found the center
Hmm.
and help so many other people.
Right.
And so I don't think, obviously, we're talking about forgiveness today. It feels like you're not 100% there.
I don't know that any, and this is important too, right? So if you're struggling right now and you're feeling like, and sometimes I even hear like my clients, who have these feelings like, how did I choose this man?
Yeah,
How did I
yeah,
have children
yeah.
with this person?
Yes.
And now my children are going to be subjected to this,
Yes.
and they're terrified for the effects that it's going to have on their kids. And if they go through a divorce, then they're not going to be there to protect them. And this is something that weighs very, very heavily on people
Yeah.
because you can't help but think, but for the decisions that I made.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to bring it up
Yeah.
because I feel like people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
And you kind of live with this guilt inside of you. And my point is that, and here I am in the road that I've traveled and still struggle with it. Sometimes I still have those feelings.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing is that like we're all imperfect people, right? And one of the things that I found in my journey, Lynn, is and I think, we talk about this all the time when we talk to our listeners about how to recover from narcissistic abuse. And you and I are both very strong proponents of counseling. We're very strong proponents of coaching. We're very strong proponents of support in all different ways, the
Yep.
support groups and all the things that
Yep.
we offer.
Yep.
Um, but one of the things that I did in my journey, and I think we can kind of pivot to this now because it's important, is that I did something called inner child work.
So this all goes to the fact that you did some really hard work on your own. And I do think that people who've suffered this kind of traumatic abuse need to do some hard work.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it is. It's not. If you don't, um, if you just try to skate over the surface of it and don't like full stop, because I've watched this happen with other people. And even myself before I really, said full stop, you find the same person in a different body.
Yeah.
And
Different
we're
spots.
going to talk about that in another podcast, the human magnet syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah,
Coming soon.
coming soon. But part of this journey to self-forgiveness,
Yeah.
to get there, is you have to recognize, and this took me a long time. It really did, because I didn't get it. Um, that the part of you that is driving the train, as my therapist used to say. Right, we if you put an unhealed, wounded child in charge of your life, and I know, and this is kind of a metaphor, but it's not really, because what happens when we are, seeking, when we gravitate toward these very unhealthy relationships, and we've talked about this in the
Yeah.
past, there's a part of us that is somehow, you know, I don't know if attracted is the right word, but we find that comfort in the chaos, right?
Yes.
So we gravitate toward these individuals
Moth to a flame.
who are very moth to a flame, who
Yes.
are very destructive for us
Yeah.
because we haven't figured out what's going on inside of ourselves, right? And when my therapist explained this to me that, we did some inner child work and we tried to figure out, where did this happen? Where was like this trauma, like in inner child work, for anyone who is interested in this topic, I suggest you go online and Google or learn about it because it's fascinating work. But essentially, just to summarize it, it's like to try to find that unhealed part of you, where the trauma first began. So if you were abused, and you came from like an alcoholic, I like to use that analogy a lot
Yeah.
because it's very similar to, the codependency piece of it. And you remember being 7 years old and your father was passed out on the couch. And then became your job to, get him off the couch and, get him into bed.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so you're learning from a very young age, and that's trauma, right?
Yeah.
But that, you have, your responsibility is to take care of this person. Okay. However that manifests in your life. And if that's that 7-year-old girl,
Yeah.
okay, when you are in this relationship, it's that 7-year-old girl, that
Huh.
unhealed 7-year-old child who never was parented, who never felt safe, who's now attracted to the ones that they feel that they can help fix, save, right? Because it all goes back to that little girl or little boy, okay? And now you're attracted to it, and you want to help, And so that little girl, that unparented, wounded child, is driving the train, is driving the car, is really making those decisions, even though you think you're making them as an adult. It's not the adult you. It's that unhealed, wounded part of you.
Yeah.
And the thing that she, taught me is that there was nobody there to save that child. There was nobody there to help that child
Hmm.
because the parents were, had their own issues and weren't available to meet that child's emotional needs. So to parent the inner child means now us, right? We're adults now. Okay. We can go back in our minds, right? We can go back to some of those situations and say, I'm going to run into that burning house, or I'm going to pick that child up off the floor, or I'm going to parent that child the way that child deserved
Wow.
to be parented in
Wow.
those times when they were being neglected or abused. But now you're an adult and truly they can't hurt you anymore. Not the way they did when you were a child,
Right.
right? So go back and love that little girl the way that you wished you had been loved.
Yeah.
So that's part of the forgiveness. So forgive me for that long
No,
explanation.
but
But if you can see and, the same way that you would feel about your own daughters,
yeah.
the same way you would feel, like if you would pick up your daughter in an unsafe situation and pick her up and throw your arms around her and
Yeah.
love her,
Yeah.
you got to go back
Yeah.
and pick up that little girl, that wounded little girl, and
Yeah.
pick her up and love her and forgive her
Right. Right.
for the decisions that she made.
Very powerful stuff.
Right?
Hope I want to ask you a couple questions. In the previously referenced workbook, So You're a Narcissist,
Yeah.
we talk about a lot of, we give you 10 radical resources. And so we use these terms because we really want you to take control, take radical responsibility for your life after narcissistic abuse. And so if we're talking about radical reality and your inner child,
Yeah.
so if your inner child is wounded, why is it so difficult to believe the narcissist the first time they show us who they are?
Because yeah, I mean, exactly, right? Right? Because you're primed. Like you are wired to want to fix that person. You are wired to want to change that person because of your experiences as a child and growing up in a household like that.
So
So
it's
you are
comfort and
you are actually well,
chaos.
you are actually the perfect foil for the narcissist, right? Like I always used to think I'm in a room with 100 people. I have like some sort of weird internal radar or something where the narcissist in
Not
that
funny.
room
It's
is going to find me or I'm going to find
like it's like
them.
a homing
You
beacon.
know, exactly. Like a homing beacon. And I mean, I'm not being facetious at all,
Yeah.
but it's because exactly for that reason, because you haven't healed your inner child. So it's that you don't know you're doing it. It's subconscious stuff. But
And the
right?
narcissist is attracted to you
Yes,
because you have that empathetic, right,
exactly.
thing coming. You're
Yes,
sending them those vibes.
exactly.
Ay, ay, ay. All right. Now let's switch gears a little bit. Um, we talk a lot about a good, healthy relationship feels safe,
Yes.
full stop, because certainly when you're in a relationship with someone who suffers from NPD, you do not feel safe. You don't,
Right.
because there's such instant.
Instability, unpredictability,
Yes,
walking on eggshells.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
all of that.
Yeah.
So, if a healthy relationship should feel like a safe harbor, what are some specific ways we can start reparenting
Mm.
this inner child to help them feel safe enough to move from impulsive reactions to intentional, radical
That
responses?
is such a good question. Oh my God. Really such a good question. Yeah. So you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It is really about reparenting that child
Wow.
because that child does behave impulsively. That child does behave recklessly. And so, some of that really is, kind of what I said earlier. You have to first forgive. I think it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
You have to forgive that child because that child was just trying to get their needs met just in a really bad self-destructive way. But you have to forgive that child for trying, right? And then, you know, when we talk about the comfort in the chaos, we talk about that so much. A lot of this is kind of rewiring your own nervous system in some ways,
Yeah.
so that you recognize that when your nervous system is elevated in that fashion,
Yeah.
and this is something else that we talk about in our fix your picker section.
Yes.
If you feel that immediate spark or that immediate charge when you meet someone, that's danger, guys. That's not love. It's your unhealed inner child recognizing the familiarity of that person.
Yeah.
So a lot of this work has to do with talking yourself down from that's not that's not my safe place. The safe place is when you meet somebody and your nervous system isn't engaged. And it takes a lot because you're like my only experience of love up until now was that feeling.
Right.
So now you have to rewire yourself for safety
Yeah.
and the person that doesn't make you feel like that. So you have to push through that as well. It's a lot of work.
So, I wish I came up with this phrase, but I did not. Don Miguel Ruiz wrote the book, The Four Agreements. It's literally required reading when you work with me. I recommend it to everyone because I do think that it really helps so much in this healing process. And he does spend some time on forgiveness, but he talks about the fact that if you do the work, you can re-engineer your reality. I
Mm.
love that term. I
Hmm.
wish I thought of that, but I did not. Um, but I do think you can do the work
Yeah.
and re-engineer your reality so that you're not attracted to these people over and over again.
Yes.
All right, last question, Hope. The road to recovery, because that's certainly something that's very important to our listeners. As a survivor enters the marathon, remember this is a marathon, not a sprint. The marathon of radical recovery. How does caring for yourself specifically look through the lens of inner child work?
Um, Patience. I would say that's the big one, right? And again, like I used to do this in my mind, and kind of think about my inner child the same way. And you don't. I mean, I'm a parent, so I had that ability,
Right.
and I would think about it in the context of my own daughters, and I would think to myself, is the same way that I feel protective of my daughters, the same way that I want to nurture my daughters, the same way that I want to keep my daughters safe. My inner child who didn't get any of that
Huh.
deserves all of those things.
Wow.
So, the parent that you want to be, and we all strive to be that parent,
Yeah.
not that we always are. And that's why I said patience,
But we're human.
right?
Yeah.
Patience. You
Yeah.
have to have patience
Yeah.
with yourself and with your inner child because, it's like you just said, it's not linear.
Yeah.
None of this
It's
work is
not.
linear, and you're
Nope.
going to have times where bottom out and mess up and okay, but that forgiveness piece of it and forgiving, yourself for your human mistakes
Yeah.
and having as much patience with yourself as you would have with your own children, I think is important. And really staying committed, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on yourself.
It's good. It's
Yeah.
good. One day at a time. I mean,
Yeah.
this is recovery. This
Yeah.
is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And you really do have to give yourself some grace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wow, hope
Yeah.
this was a very powerful subject today. I hope we answered a whole lot of questions that you might have had about
Yeah.
forgiveness
Yeah.
and about inner child work. If not, please email us
Yeah.
because we want to answer topics and questions that you're interested in.
Yeah, and you can email us at narcslayers@centerforhope.wny.org.
Please,
Yeah,
stay tuned because next month we talked a little bit about it, but it's a big
yeah,
interview. We're very, very, very excited.
yeah,
So
yeah.
fix your picker.
And we'll see you next time on the Narcissist Slayers.